Yesterday, Moshe asked a question. Can you repeat your question, please? That you asked us yesterday.
I just questioned Adam Rishon, that's all. There was a question I posed just before the close of the class yesterday.
Yes.
Adam Rishon, and you stated he was a holy person. Is that correct?
Who?
Adam Rishon.
Yes.
So I posited.
He only has one.
Okay. That perhaps he wasn't. All his wishes, desires, needs were fulfilled. Food, clothing, shelter, never had to work. And he was given the supreme gift, nobody else, eternal life. In exchange for all that, he had one commandment. And he didn't do it. He blew it, so to speak. Okay? So, what was so special and holy about Adam Rishon? If he exchanged all that for one commandment.
Now, the sages, when they describe what was involved in the commandment, they explained it contained what were then the Noachide, what's afterwards called the Noachide code, which was originally the code for Adam. The original code of life given by the Creator when he was able to even to speak to Adam after he created him. He was on a different level, different type of personality than the one that we know today. And it's clear there's no way in which we can understand the situation of Adam before the sin in our present state, because he was a different type of human being. And altogether, the whole episode of the paradise of Gan Eden, if one can take it at, let's say, at the most elementary level, how it's presented as his children, to be a story which we can paint and look at in terms of what's going on with our lives. But according to all the deep aspects, also of the text, and goes in deeply, and of the oral tradition, it refers to a different type of life experience. The only one we can compare to some extent is the near-death experience. In other words, it's a different planet. According to the simple interpretation, one looks at it from the point of view of the prophets, what they say about Gan Eden, that the awareness of the human being as we know it today, in the future is also going to be changed. There's a possibility of being transformed into Gan Eden. The whole of this globe has the potential of Gan Eden and the potential of Gehinnom. So the Talmud puts it this way. In the verse which describes you can eat from all the trees of the garden, but not of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, contains a reference to the Noachide code. Except, as meat wasn't part of the diet in any case, so limb from a limb from an animal is excluded. It's not one of the seven. So first, if we look at the Noachide code from a wider angle, it is to some extent equivalent to the deeper awareness human beings have of a conscience, of there being a difference between good and evil. But it's very subjective, and the more objective aspect of the Noachide Code, which goes not into 7, but into hundreds of details, it's a whole code of moral behavior, which afterwards incorporated in the 630 mitzvot. And 630 mitzvot, which we talk about, are really an expansion of the Noachide Code. And the Noachide Code is a development from the Adamite Code, the original code. Now, they're talking here about the human conscience at its deepest levels, and there are in the subconscious memory of mankind, there are glimpses of a utopian world, of different type of existence where there's no evil, where evil did not exist. And the sin of Adam was that he permitted evil to exist. Evil was something which was kept outside the garden, as it were, outside the human being. There was a possibility of man developing to pursue evil, but it was not an actuality. And he transformed this potential to actuality. The truth is, to understand this better, your question has a lot to do with a concept which we develop now, of the difference between absolute truth and falsehood, and moral truth and falsehood. It's perhaps easier to understand it in terms of the next page here, Rav Dessler. When we see a similar discussion concerning from what we know from the past and how it will be applied in the future. So to answer this question more deeply, I want now to carry on with page 455. Because closely connected with the deep understanding of the Gan Eden of the past, and if we compare, if we compare to our situation today, we've got 613 commandments, or at least we've got 10 commandments, and we sometimes transgress them. So surely, if Adam Arishon was at such a high level, he only had one commandment to keep. It's difficult to understand. We can call him a higher human being, since he failed to keep it. So now we're going to speak about the future situation, where the sages say, Shchitat HaSatan. There's going to come a time when Satan will be slaughtered. So the sages put it. Amru Zal, our sages said, Yatid Lavo, in the future times, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that means God will bring the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, V'shochato, and he slaughters it in front of the tzaddikim, in front of the wicked. The saints will say, "Ooh, this evil inclination." We say, let's go back to this statement often quoted, "Hu ha-Satan." Satan really means obstacle. Hu ha-Satan, hu ha-Yetzer Hara, hu ha-Malach ha-Mavet. The angel of death, that means the power of death, also the consciousness of man, and the evil inclination, and the Satan are the same. They're really basically the same principle of life and death. The power of life and the power of death. If you want to put it in psychoanalytical terms, Freud in fact uses this constantly, there's Eros and Thanatos. uses Greek words. Eros is the life and love power. Thanatos is the death and the destructive power. And these are the two powers. Powers of life and power of death. In fact, subconsciously well known, Sigmund Freud knew very little about Judaism. In fact, his book on Judaism is such an ignorant, shows such great ignorance, quite apart from his ideas. Moses' monotheism is his books, but for sure, after what he found out afterwards, he wouldn't have put it forward in later years, because he had a disciple who knew something about Judaism called Velikovsky. And Velikovsky showed him what it says in the Gemara, in the Zohar, in the Jewish tradition, concerning good and evil, concerning life and death. And he was extremely impressed by it. It made a big impact on him as well. Because subconsciously, it's very interesting, he absorbed ideas that are found in the Zohar and in the Gemara. Anyway, let's go on with the statement here made by the Gemara, that in the future what's going to happen? The power of evil will be destroyed. And when the saints see the power of evil, they were able to overcome, it seems to them like one of the highest mountains, a big obstacle. How did they get over it? They don't even understand. But the wicked people, for them, it's just like a hair's breadth. They'll wonder, why did I give in when I've got the possibility to do without it? Why did I straight away succumb to the Yitzhar and Satan? Halala bochem, halala bochem. The saints cry and the sinners cry. Tzadikim bochem v'omrim heich yachol lichbosh ha'agbo hazeh. The saints will say, they'll cry, how was I able to overcome this high mountain? Rashaim, the wicked will say, if lo yacholnu lichbosh chut hasar hazeh, why were we not able to go and subdue this hair's breadth? That's all we needed. We have HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tamim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is also surprised with them. So what does all this mean? Such a cryptic statement. So now we come to the question of what is the truth of Gan Eden and Gehenna. See, Gan Eden is identified by the prophets with Eretz Israel, the future. And some of the prophets, they identified with the whole world of the future. Gehenna is also identified with the valley of Hinnom, which we often pass by when we go to the old city. It's still there. Some people give it the same name. It's the valley which drops right down to the mountain of Zion. And why is it called Gehenna? What happened there? That was the center of Moloch worship. The most corrupt and the most grotesque and brutal. Call it idolatry, call it immorality, call it murder, where parents, they threw their children into the mouth of the fiery furnace, which was in the mouth of the Moloch god. And it's one of the ways of worshipping was to pass the children through. It says in the Chumash, it says, when you will go to Eretz Israel at that time, the Canaanites, it says, as the worst to'eva, the worst abomination, was Moloch worship. That mothers would throw their children into this fiery furnace, part of the idolatrous service. So this is corruption, destruction of the human being in the worst possible fashion. That's the Gehenna. The place is still identified until today. And this is used as a symbol of what do you call it? Heaven and hell. That's hell. Hell on earth. So he says, now he puts it this way, we should know the whole difference, Gehenna and Gan Eden, is like a hair's breadth. Because Gan Eden Gehinnom depend on whether a person chooses virtue or vice. V'nakuda ikarit shel kol bechira tova, and the point of every power of choice of virtue instead of vice depends b'hitrakuz el mabat ha'emet shebetocho, to concentrate upon the outlook of truth which exists in choosing virtue. As explained, but Dessler explains this in other parts of his talks that he gave. And this point is really, the point of Bechira is like a hair's breadth. V'yadua, it's known, שהרוצה לשבור את יצרו, אפילו בנקודה אחת קטנה, it's well known in life. It gives illustration, I think, from his own life. Dessler was what I mentioned to you a minute before. Here you've got his actual words. He said, a person who wants to break an evil trait that he has, even in the smallest point, what will happen? If he works hard to break the inclination, then every moment the evil inclination becomes stronger. It's like a spring, let's say a wire spring. When you press it down, then the wire spring is made to press up. The more that you press it down, the stronger will the spring be to push you up again. This you've got to press something that's on a strong spring, put it right on. The lower you go with it, the stronger comes the power of the spring to push your hand upwards again. The dogma gives an example. This way we can understand it more easily. What happens if a person's been a chain smoker and he makes a decision not going to smoke anymore? Look, he like I gave examples yesterday, he analyzes. He's just seen a film. I'll tell you what happened. When we started the yeshiva, I'll tell you what happened in our yeshiva. We started the yeshiva, I immediately made a rule in our yeshiva, no smoking allowed. I had a personal bias, because all since I've been a youngster, I've been allergic to smoke, which affected my health in different ways. And then when I grew up, and I found out also from various people, how a smoky atmosphere brings illness, brings asthma, brings breathing difficulties. And I can smell it. Even if it's in the yard of the yeshiva, if somebody is smoking, I smell it. And on me it has immediate. So even until today, so since those times, I've fled from it like anything. Once I had a certain situation, I had to make myself feel ill, so I took a cigarette. So it wasn't any good.
Wait, what happened?
Please don't interrupt. So this is it happened to him as well. He was a chain smoker. So it's right. A person's a chain smoker. The first moment he says, when you've really, like I was telling you about the film, I was telling you about that. So in the yeshiva, when we moved to Geula area, and there were so many smokers there, so I got in touch with that other hospital, get me your film about cancer, smoke brings cancer. I showed it in the yeshiva. I showed the film, and I said, well, come along, see a nice film. Some of them stopped smoking when they saw what happened to the lungs once you start smoking. Okay, but it was not easy. And in fact, I had it here in the yeshiva one time. I had a lot of Koila people smoking, and then you're not allowed to smoke. And I brought propaganda and so on. The person who was in fact the right-hand man of Rav Shach, and he started helping Rav Shach when he was smoking. Yes? And then Rav Shach, he dropped it, and he So this person, he wrote a whole book, that's the evils of smoking, and he got decisions from nearly all the great halachic authorities that it's forbidden to smoke. And I showed it here. It helped on the whole. On the whole, it helps. And when I see youngsters starting to smoke again, you really, it's a question of saving their lives in many ways, and saving the lives of other people. To just tell them these youngsters starting smoking, they're doing harm to themselves and harm to anybody else who's in the environment. So anyway, listen now. Let's go back to that Dessler himself. So Dessler said, at the first moment, you've seen such a film, you've read books on it, or you've met with doctors, who can tell you, Then you say, well, you've seen people die from it, like a rabbi in his Middle Ages was a great Talmud Chacham in England, and unfortunately died from cancer from smoking. And all the people sitting around him when he was in his last day of life, he said to them, I ask all of you, wherever you are, make a campaign against smoking. Because see what's happening to me, what's happened to others. Anyway, what happens? The first moment's easy, but then afterwards, it's very afterwards, the desire to smoke, the craving increases. And something increases so much that whatever you've undertaken not to do, you do. You give in. And that's where the tzaddikim, for them, it's like a big mountain. When they have to face, they start working on a small point to make themselves better. And then the Yetzer Hara becomes bigger. I had also with students in other areas in the yeshiva. Students have come to me and said to me, before they lived a permissive lifestyle. So when they went to the street and they saw people, saw members of the opposite sex not clothed in a modest fashion, politely, so it didn't bother them. They were in such company non-stop. And since they came to the yeshiva, if they go in the street, they get stimulated right away. What's going on? I thought I'd come to the yeshiva, I'll become better inside. No, I said become worse. Because all the stimulus. That's part of it. That's part of the same situation. You start working on yourself, don't think it'll become easier, it becomes more difficult. Right, so the tzaddikim is like a big mountain. Because they've seen the way in which the evil obligation increases constantly and tries to overcome their desire to become good. 10,000 times as strong as the first point. But the wicked person, he says, look, it was only an easy thing, and he cries, well, I couldn't even resist such a simple temptation, so therefore them it seems simple. What's it mean that the wicked cry? He says that's their tikkun, that's their gehinnom. Gehinnom means when you recognize that unfortunately you didn't use opportunities to reach a higher level in your life from a moral point of view. And what is the crying of the saints? Rashi says, for they remember the difficulty they had to control all the powers of evil inside themselves when they were alive. They should recognize the greatness of the help from heaven, which gave them the ability to overcome it. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tamei Mahem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu also wonders with them. Lelamed ladad shapikidre abechiras chavones shenikpa. We should know, according to the concept of freedom of choice and reward and punishment, which is fixed accordingly. Lefi anachot ruchaniot shebolam lo shaech chesed kazeh. Then, according to the natural world, then there would be no loving kindness in this. But because HaKadosh Baruch Hu Atzmo, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is total loving kindness, they received this because of the help they had from Hashem. So this is the concept of slaughtering the evil inclination, which means shenase kasher they say. As a result, the evil inclination becomes acceptable. It means the evil is transformed to good. It's reached its ultimate purpose, and its mission from Hashem has become fulfilled. The sages say the Satan really has an intention for the sake of heaven. What's it mean? The purpose of the hiddenness of the power of virtue and the power of Hashem in the human being is to demonstrate the glory of heaven. The saints are able to overcome it. And this slaughtering of its power is part of its mission, to teach us the hiddenness of the loving kindness of Hashem and the divine image of the human being, which is hidden, is part of it becoming revealed ultimately. It ultimately reveals the power of good in the world. So all this is to understand that it says in the first chapter of the first chapters of the Chumash, I think this is the key to it, that there's a contradiction. Adam and Eve had no parents, according to the way it's described. And when they got together, it says, Al-Kein Yazov Ish et Aviv v'Temor. Person's got to forsake his father and mother, and he's got to become one flesh with his wife. What deduction is that? What do you mean? Gan Eden was a different type of being. Adam had no parents. Eve had no parents. So why does it say a person should forsake his father and his mother? So we see like this. The whole aspect of what we're told in the Chumash concerning Adam and Eve and the serpent, at its deeper level, it's got meanings that will perhaps only be understood in a future level of mankind, when the world will become a Gan Eden, when human beings, just like it says, war will become obsolete. That's even written. They even wrote it down on the building of the United Nations. War will become obsolete. How can war become obsolete? So it says even there, they'll no longer learn the path of warfare. And if you take this more widely, as is described by the prophets, people will not want to do evil. They'll only want to do good. And they'll produce a world which is godly. They produce a world where it says the lion is with the lamb. What's it mean? It means that everyone will be at peace. The rich will be at peace with the poor. The strong will be at peace with the weak. And they won't try to, each one, to have claims against the other. That means a change of the human personality. Complete change. And it starts with each person. People will become different because they learn the lesson. In other words, the choice, if we go back to about the Kruvim, either we live like Kruvim, or we live the constant destructive cycle of destruction and evil which surrounds us. It applies to each individual, it applies to families, it applies to societies, national society, it applies to the whole world. So the situation, we're told about the original purpose of the human being was to be given Tzelem Elokim, a divine image. And the divine image should give us the ability to see the stupidity of crime. And we, in our lives, most of us here, we're very fortunate. We belong to a group of human beings that whatever our personal background has been, but there are certain aspects of evil that we see other groups and other types of civilizations unfortunately developing, and we've been left out, which means were inhibited against them. For them, like I explained, gross idolatry and rape and murder, these are things where we have no struggle. It's disappeared from our lives, if we're fortunate enough. Unfortunately, we read about it and see about it, but we think, well, this has nothing to do with our society. Corrupt idolatry, Moloch worship, it becomes impossible to think of such a thing. But what's going on today? Well, in other societies, in other civilizations, what Moloch worship, these terrorists, for them, and they treat their little babies like that as well, death, we want death. And parents are delighted if their children will commit suicide. What's going on here? What's happening to mankind? When an individual in our society intends suicide, what do? We say, I mean, you need a psychiatrist. If he keeps on with it, we talk to him, so that doesn't help. We know that this is out of our bounds. So for us, the choice between living, physically living, and committing suicide, for us is not a question of choice. Obviously, under all circumstances, we want life. We want life as long as possible. We wouldn't dream of encouraging people to get out of this life. Keep wanting them. What's going on? It's difficult, so you overcome the difficulty, you get help, you get prayed. That's our approach to life. So if our certain things which are called crimes, and which are sinful, and which are mentioned in the Bible, happening in biblical times, and happening even more so today in certain areas. So for us, it's a choice between insanity and sanity, which is truth and falsehood. But there'll come a time when we realize that all sin is really insanity. So this is the point where the change takes place. It starts with one point even. Because if you give in on one point, you're already allowing, whichever area it is, the power of evil to enter into your conscious awareness. And I think this makes very good sense if you would, for example, take a work like Viktor Frankl, who was also a psychoanalyst originally, following the teachings of Freud, and to some extent also Adler, Jung. But then he went through Auschwitz, and then he wrote his famous book on the meaning and purpose of life, logotherapy. But then he wrote another book called The Unconscious God. You'll find the same concept developed there in present-day psychological terms. He calls the conscious of human beings the unconscious God inside each person, a conscious message of God inside each person. And if a person follows his true conscience in everything, then his whole life can change. And if families will do that, and groups will do that, it can change the world. So we'll go into this lineage a bit further also in the next shiur, but here this gives one aspect of it.
Thank you, Rosh Hashanah.